Hello, it's Dr. Deborah M. Wilson here. I'm reading the chapters of the Resilient Learner's Backpack. At the end of the video, I do go over all the backpack essential activities, so please stay to the end so you can see all the activities that I've designed to help expand nervous system flexibility. Thanks, and without further ado, we are on step 5. To review, step 1 is befriend your nervous system. Step 2 is increase signals of safety and connection. Step 3, identify regulating resources. Step 4, retune the nervous system. Step 5, expand nervous system flexibility. Imagine you have a backpack of resources that is carried with you wherever you go, so you can remain safely and confidently on your learning path. Your backpack provides you with the resources needed as you negotiate the obstacles or challenges that elicit sympathetic or dorsal vagal responses. These resources come from the positive people, places, and experiences that shape the nervous system. There are 3 types of learners whose behaviors align with the ANS states: success-oriented, failure-avoiding, and failure-accepting. These learners become comfortable in one of 3 categories. The success-oriented students have skills to meet academic challenges, backpacks full of regulating resources and skills that foster resilience. These students are motivated and engaged, gather resources as needed, believe they are capable of learning, and are adaptable and resilient. Being adaptable underpins their academic resilience. Failure-avoiding students are less motivated and engaged. They do the minimum to avoid failure or participate because they want to avoid the consequences of failing. These students may act out, clown around, or deflect to avoid doing their assignments. They exhibit signs of a sympathetic nervous system response when faced with learning situations that challenge their skills. These learners may use fighting or leaving the situation as a protective response to the signals of danger perceived by their nervous systems. Feeling unsafe to take risks and being unable to identify regulating resources in their environments that could help them overcome their learning hurdles. These learners are often in a sympathetic state. There is a tendency for teachers and support staff to focus on students who elicit sympathetic responses of fight or flight. These students are more disruptive and call attention to themselves. Unlike the quieter students, they have regulating resources in their backpacks, but don't know how to readily access them when needed. The path to success for the failure-avoidant students is to show them how to access their backpacks as needed to overcome obstacles in the way of success. Failure-accepting learners continue to fail year after year. Their response to failed attempts at academic success may be sitting quietly in class, feeling lonely, and resigning themselves to failure, a dorsal vagal response. Because these students don't draw attention to themselves, they may fly under the radar and lack the support and resources needed to be in an optimal learning state. Metaphorical backpack of skills tucked away in a closet, void of essential skills and regulating resources. These learners are quietly failing and need our attention even though they aren't disruptive. The image on the page depicts a success-oriented student in ventral vagal, but without access to regulating resources, they move down into failure-avoiding and may elicit a sympathetic response. And without access to regulating resources in sympathetic, they may go into failure-accepting or dorsal vagal. Think about the students in your class or on your caseload. By day's end, who is on your mind? The student who was quiet, not causing trouble, or the one who was loudly dysregulated? Let's make a point to notice and support the quiet ones, the lonely ones, the shutdown dwellers. Having access to regulating resources is an important aspect of building resiliency. Often the access isn't visual, meaning it's inside our heads or inside the students' heads. Make a point to bring the resources out into the open and explicitly design learning environments with regulating assets in the forefront. The learning hub at the core of resilience. The difference between motivated and engaged students versus those who are not motivated and engaged may be whether students have access to the learning hub of resources. The learning hub illustrates the resources students need for emotional, behavioral, and academic success. The hub brings together all the concepts discussed in prior chapters, including safety and connection, interactive regulating resources, and cultivation of skills. Insert the hub into the center of any behavior, mindfulness, social, emotional, or learning program that uses a wheel or circle for its model. The hub serves as a guide for packing backpack essentials that help students retune their nervous systems and become more adaptable and resilient. Increasing flexibility with blended states. Knowing how to access resources leads to additional nervous system responses. You're now able to blend states and become more playful when desired, or quietly still without shutting down altogether. Blended states are two nervous system states coming together to create more options for how we show up in the world. Play is a blending of ventral vagal and sympathetic states. The vagal brake is the heart's built-in pacemaker. This is the sinoatrial node. The vagal brake, through engagement and disengagement via the vagal pathway to the heart, slows or speeds the heart as needed for increasing flexibility. Children with a poorly functional vagal brake have a difficult time with transitions and slowing down after upbeat activities. It's important to include activities that help improve vagal brake functioning. The popular game of red light, green light is an example of a vagal brake tuning activity requiring engagement and disengagement by stopping and starting movement. In many of the school moves activities, pauses are purposely added to require learners to take a ventral pause. I've coined this term to remind us of the importance throughout the day of taking a pause when we feel ourselves or our students moving into a sympathetic state that doesn't include any ventral vagal energy. To play with others, there needs to be the mobilizing energy of sympathetic with the grounding energy of ventral vagal. When learning in a playful state, there's more joy and enthusiasm for staff and students alike. An example of learning in a playful state is when movement is part of an academic activity. Creating plays and readers' theater are other examples of learning while in a state of play. Play can be structured, rules and objectives, or free play. When the mobilizing energy of play becomes unbalanced and there is more sympathetic activation than ventral vagal energy, play becomes aggressive, and the amicable connection between two people may feel unsafe, causing disconnection. You witness this happening on the playground when two children are playing nicely together and then the play turns into a fight. Teaching students how to keep one foot in ventral when the balance shifts towards sympathetic is an important aspect of learning how to play with others. The second blended state is quietly still, the blending of ventral vagal energy with dorsal vagal energy. Quietly still is the hardest state to move into because it requires feeling safe, along with being calm without eliciting a full dorsal vagal shutdown response. Often when we ask students to be quiet, mindful, and thoughtful, it's difficult to achieve for students with complex danger maps and limited regulating resources in their backpacks. Students with disorganized sympathetic mobilization have a challenging time becoming quietly still. For students to achieve a quietly still state, it's important for them to organize their sympathetic energy through movement or rhythmic activity prior to moving into the state of quietly still. In addition to the two blended states of play and quietly still, two responses that aren't specifically states may be observed in students. We've discussed the first response of quietly failing earlier. Quietly failing students may be internally stressed, have complex danger maps, and lack the words to express how they feel. Students exhibiting a quietly failing response may be in dorsal vagal shutdown. Why bother when nothing seems to make me successful in class? The other response that's important to understand is the freeze response. This response may be experienced as a complete dorsal vagal shutdown during an event that is life-threatening. The freeze response may also occur when the nervous system is temporarily indecisive about the best response when experiencing signals of danger or is overwhelmed with incoming sensory information. This response is a blending of sympathetic and dorsal vagal states. A student may freeze by remaining still, showing signs of fear on their face, and tensing muscles in their body. To manage the incoming sensory information, the freeze is activated to buy some time to process the information. These students are often described as willful, non-compliant, or stubborn. The actual cause for this type of behavior is often the freeze response. Increase feelings of safety by simplifying directions and preparing a student for change ahead of time to reduce students' freeze responses. Asking a student, "Are you stuck?" and "What does your nervous system need right now?" may increase feelings of safety and connection so the student can shift states toward ventral vagal. Step 5 Backpack Essentials focus on identifying regulating resources for you and your students that fit nicely into your metaphorical backpacks. Knowing how to access and utilize these resources keeps you moving forward on your path toward being more flexible, adaptable, buoyant, and resilient. You and your students now have a backpack full of regulating resources to keep you moving merrily along your teaching and learning paths. Carry the resources with you when you and your students wander off your paths. While the resources may change depending on your situation, your backpack holds resources to meet a variety of needs. Share your resources with others through co-regulation or socially shared experiences. Step 5, Befriending Benefits. Your metaphorical backpack of resources travels with you on your life's journey to help you be more adaptable and prepared to handle the ever-changing conditions on the trail. Knowing how to access your backpack of regulating resources helps you keep one foot in ventral and strengthens resilience. The Learning Hub unifies and simplifies complex polyvagal concepts that are essential for students to remain motivated and engaged throughout the learning process. Learning through play provides a way for students in a mobilized state to channel their energy and improve focus at the same time. When teachers support staff and students expand their polyvagal lexicons, a common language emerges to build befriending school climates that support diverse students while expanding opportunities to build resiliency. Step 5, Backpack Essentials. Expand nervous system flexibility. The one thing. I am doing the best I can, and even though I may need more time to learn, I want to learn. Stephen Terrell, co-author of Nurturing Resilience, Helping Clients Move Forward from Developmental Trauma, an integrative somatic approach. Step 5, Objectives. Understand how to integrate the Learning Hub into programs already in place. Learn how to observe learners' nervous system flexibility and implement nervous system flexibility building activities. Step 5, Expand nervous system flexibility. Hi, it's Deborah M., and we're back again for another session of Backpack Essentials. The Learning Hub integration tool is something that I developed because I saw so many programs had a wheel, but in the middle of the wheel, it was empty. And I thought, could we put a hub in there? And could we kind of put a polyvagal learning hub in there where we use that as the center, like where we start from? So the hub is safety and connection, finding our regulating resources, and cultivating the skills that students are needing. So you have this tool where you can look at and ask yourself these questions. What program is implemented to help students to be more resilient? And how does the Learning Hub integrate with that program? How does your current program ensure safety and connection? What regulating resources does this program have available to students? And what skills are being cultivated in this book that you might add to whatever program you use? So again, there's an example that you can look at and to understand the Learning Hub a little bit better. An important part of retuning the nervous system and increasing nervous system flexibility is understanding these blended states. So there's a video coming up. I won't go into great detail because the video will explain it, but the blended states are how we become flexible in situations. For instance, we can be watching a show and then just start laughing at something that because it's pretty funny, and then the vagal brake releases and allows our heart rate to speed up and we get more energy and we start laughing, but then we need to go back to quiet and back to watching the movie again. This happens all day long in our classrooms. So when we're talking about nervous system flexibility, a vagal brake's a big part of it. And having that vagal brake be tuned is a way for us to be able to go from fun out at recess to come back into quieting in the classroom, to go to the lunchroom and walk through the hallways and then come back and focus. So students who have difficulty with transitions, I hear this all the time, difficulty with transitions, usually have issues with vagal brake. So in this step, we work on vagal brake retuning activities. The press and pause activity is one of those retuning activities where we take movement and then we add pauses in them. I used pauses for a long time with school moves before I even knew why. I just knew that so many of my students didn't have a pause button. So a lot of the posters in my initial school moves, focus moves posters had pauses in them. And now that I understand polyvagal theory and know about the vagal brake, it all makes sense. So we want students to practice pausing, because that's how we practice engaging and disengaging the vagal brake. So in this activity, they are pressing with both hands on the desk. They could be pressing on their thighs. They could even be pressing against a wall. And then they alternate right or left, pause, and then press their feet into the floor, then alternate left and right foot, and so on. It's just a great way to take a break. To me, these are what brain breaks need to be. They're brain breaks with a purpose, like we're retuning this vagal break while we're taking our brain break. So then there's a challenge activity where I just up the ante a little bit. And now this is kind of a complicated one, but so they know the hands and the feet part of it. Now they touch their elbow with if there's an L in the shape, then they touch the elbow with that hand. So they touch the elbow with their left hand or their right hand, and then they touch their left knee or their right knee, like of the cross crawl. So it's pretty fun activity. And when I was creating it and designing it, I would stop and do it myself. And I even found that when I'm like recording these, doing these recordings and or working long hours at my computer, when I would be stopping to do some of these activities as part of what I was working on, it actually refreshed me. And I thought, oh, this works. So you can use it, as we can use it as adults as well as with the kids. So the go and slow activity is basically the C stands for clap, the J stands for jump, and the T stands for crossing your right leg in front of the left leg and tapping the foot on the floor. So you're kind of crossing over and kind of tapping your foot. So T is kind of standing for that, and then the line underneath is pause. So just another activity students can do by themselves. They can do it with a partner. You can do it with a whole group. And then my moves activity, I really thought about this. I thought, okay, if they're on their path and they're in ventral or they're in sympathetic or in their dorsal, what movements have they learned so far? Movement routines do they like? Like when they're in ventral, what movements do you like to do when you're in ventral? Go for a walk. I like to go for a swim. And then when we're in sympathetic, what are our organizing moves? What are those movements that help us organize all that energy? For me, it's probably cleaning the house. So if I'm cleaning the house vigorously, usually it's because I'm stressed out about something and I have to organize that. Or I go for a swim or I go for a walk. But I usually do a little more heavy work. So what do your students like to do that helps organize that excess energy? And then for when they're down in dorsal vagal, moving down their autonomic ladder into dorsal vagal, what moves energize them? Gentle movement, but it helps bring energy to the system because remember in dorsal, we don't have a lot of energy. So when we're in that low state of dorsal with not a lot of energy, sometimes it's just something really easy, listening to a little bit of music, writing in a journal. It might not be big moves. It might be something small, but something that does get some movement going. So this is an activity that you can do with your students and add to their ventral backpack. So when you say, where are your regulating resources? What are they when you're in sympathetic? They know, well, I like to do listen, link, move, sync, or I like to do the go and slow activity. In dorsal, I like to do the present pause activity or the press and pause challenge activity. When I'm feeling good about stuff, my enjoyable moves, I really like doing rhythm moves, partner, or arrow moves. So it's just a way to organize the moves by nervous system states. Thank you for listening or watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did enjoy the video, it really helps if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for all you do for children. We'll catch you in the next video.